Hey, what's up, everybody? Thanks for listening. Welcome back to another episode of the Business Owners Freedom Formula Show, where we chat with inspiring entrepreneurs and dig into their highs, lows, and everything in between in their business building journey and learn about how they've been able to achieve ultimate freedom. In today's episode number 4, we have another great guest with us here today. But before we get started, just a quick reminder that you can get all the show notes by going to our website, paulmaskill.com. Or if you're on your iPhone, you can simply click on the podcast logo and the show notes will pop right up for you. And if you're looking to mastermind with other like-minded business owners that are listening to the show, jump into our free Facebook group at bizfreedomformula.com. Oh, and did I mention that all of our podcasts are recorded, including video with no edits, so you can check these out on Facebook and YouTube as well. So without further ado, we are going to jump right in. Today's guest, Tom Schwab, knows how to build an online business. Marketing at its heart is starting a conversation with someone who could be an ideal customer. Tom helps small business owners, entrepreneurs, and solopreneurs get featured on leading podcasts their prospects are already listening to. Then he shows them how to turn those listeners into customers. Tom is the founder of Interview Valet, a concierge-level podcast guest booking service, and the author of Podcast Guest Profits. So that is Tom Schwab from Interview Valet. Welcome, Tom. How's it going?
Paul, it is great to be here and great to talk with you.
Awesome. So did I miss anything in the intro? Fill us in on what's going on in your world today.
I would just have to say, to let people in to know before we hit the record button here, I am coming to you from Kalamazoo, Michigan. Yes, it really exists, and more proof that you can do podcasting and connect with your ideal customers no matter where you are.
That is a fact. And I think Tom knows that better than anybody. We were just chatting before we got started. He is waiting to hear back from the Guinness Book of World Records for being the most interviewed guest in podcast history, I believe. So he's been on 500 shows. So if you haven't heard him, just search his name after this show and you'll find anything and everything that you want to hear Tom talk about. So Tom, what else is happening?
Well, really, we're just so excited about the medium of podcasting. It's really starting to grow and continue to grow. And one of the things that I think is the funniest thing is to still call it podcasting. There are so many people that listen to it that have no idea what an iPod is, right? My daughters listen to podcasts, but they would have no idea what an iPod is. Really, it's on-demand radio now. And really, it's so great because you can listen to it where you want, when you want. A lot of the stuff that you listen to on Sirius XM, that's podcast interviews that are getting, repurposed. I know a lot of podcasters that are getting picked up on terrestrial radio. And I always tell the story that last summer, I got a call from a couple buddies down in Arizona. And they wondered, hey, I didn't realize you were in town. Let's get together for dinner. And after I got the call from the second one, I called them back and said, why do you think I'm in Arizona? And they're like, we heard you on the morning drive this morning on radio and we figured you were in town. When I started to piece it together, it was a podcast interview that I had done probably 6 months before that got repurposed. So, to me, that is the amazing part. And, I always say there's a lot of things that are wrong in the world today. But boy, if as a business owner, if you don't wake up in the morning to just pinch yourself for all the neat stuff that we have, there's no better time to be alive and no better time to be a business owner with the freedom that we can get these days.
That couldn't have said it better myself. It's so true. I mean, with the internet, technology, everything that you have in your hands, there is no better time to get started. So kind of speaking about getting started, how did you get started in this whole world of podcasting back when there were iPods? And what were you doing before that to get you where you are today?
To me, it's the podcasts are a tool, right? It's the strategy that never changes. And so my background is an engineer. I always say my first job out of college was running nuclear power plants. I've run nuclear power plants and a small business. One of them was easy because it came with an instruction manual. But so I've always looked at the world as, problems to be solved, things to be optimized. I loved my time in the Navy. Then I worked for a Fortune 500 company doing operations, then sales and marketing, and then ran my own company. And the way I built my company was with something called inbound marketing, which is content marketing. How do you use content to attract customers, engage them, and convert them? And it all worked well. And, when I built mine, we were doing it on blogs. And one of the things I noticed a few years ago as I was working with clients is that blogs don't work nearly as well anymore. Who really reads as many blogs? And I think right now, I saw the other day, there's like 41 million blogs out there. So trying to break through is really tough. And I can remember talking to one of our initial customers, a mutual friend of ours, Aaron Walker, over at View from the Top.
Yep.
And he'd work really hard writing a blog. He'd spend a few hours on it, and I'd read it and go, yep, that's a blog. Keep doing that for a couple of years and you'll get traction. And the thing is he had such a great stories to tell. And we thought, boy, could we get him on podcasts? Almost like guest blogging. Go to places that your customers already are. Get there, get them to know, like, and trust you, and use that as a way to get your message out. And we were just amazed by the results, Paul. So, we saw conversion rates 25 times better than blogs. A good blog will convert like 1% to 2% visitor to lead. What we were seeing, conversions factors of 25 to 50% visitor to lead.
Wow.
So as an engineer, I'm like, this is too good to be true. There's got to be some glitch to it. So we tested it, tried it with different niches, different personalities, and really proved the system, optimized it, and really put something together. And then in 2015, the end of that, we started to launch Interview Valet, which is really just a done-for-you service, because we had so many of our ideal clients that said, I want to be the guest. You take care of all the rest. I'll never forget that as a business owner, we've all got opinions in our business, but the only people that have the answers are our customers. And there was one customer that came to me and said, Sinatra only sang. And I'm like, all right, what's that mean? And he's like, all I want to do, because at this time we were trying to teach him how to do this system. He says, all I want to do is show up and perform. I'll be the guest. You take care of all the rest. And I'm like, that's good copy. That's good copy. I'm going to take that tag.
Can we take that? No, I mean, that's fantastic. And I mean, you hit on so many really important points for any business owner out there. One is building that know, like, and trust factor is so important, instead of just trying to jam sales down their throats. And when you can really have a conversation. I talk to business owners all the time. I'm sure you do the same. They're saying, well, my Facebook ads don't work. My Facebook ads don't work. It's like, well, they didn't even know who you were 2 seconds ago. They're not going to just buy from you right away. You need to get that know, like, and trust factor. And by doing it with podcasting, whether you run a local business or you're trying to get out in the world, I mean, there's no better way to do it. And, like you said, sitting down to write a blog and then sitting down to read a blog is, I mean, this conversation that we're having, if we got it all transcribed, it'd probably be an epic 5,000 word blog post. And it's just taking us a 30-minute conversation that whoever's on the other side of it can listen to it in their car, cutting the grass, whatever they're doing. You can do it all the time. It's kind of hard to read, although people do try it very often, trying to read their phone when they're driving, but it's a lot easier to listen to it. So as you were scaling this business and your previous business, what were some kind of pivotal points, to get you to the next level? Obviously, you really did hit on the systems that you have in place and that your guests have in place, where they only want to focus on what they're good at. And that's really what we're trying to get our listeners to kind of realize as well. Delegate the rest. Let me just do what I'm really good at. But in your case, what were some pivotal points and kind of moments where you almost quit and got over the hump?
Yeah, to me, it's I'm a tech guy, right? So I love tools. I love always trying the newest thing. I'm an early adapter. But somebody pointed out to me years and years ago, and it's always stuck with me, is that all these tools are just multipliers. They're multipliers of our brilliance or our ignorance. And the best example I have of this is, think about a chainsaw. A buddy of mine, Dan Miller, he had a tree that fell down. And you can go to his website and see this beautiful tree where an artist came in with the chainsaw and carved a beautiful eagle in there. Well, then I took that same tool, a chainsaw, and a couple of years ago, I almost cut off my leg. Right? And it had nothing to do with the tool. The tool is just powerful, and it will amplify your brilliance, or in my case, your ignorance. And I see the same thing where a lot of times as business owners, and I've been guilty of this too, that say, oh, if I only had this tool, then my business would be better. And the truth is that I can give you the best email marketing tool, but if you aren't using the one that you have right now, all you're going to do is spam people more, and it's going to hurt your business, right?
That's true.
So that's one of the things that I always have to struggle with, and I coach people with and through, is that focus on the strategy, right? So podcast interview marketing, I don't know, will podcasts be around 10 years from now? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe it'll be something else, but the strategy will still work, right? So even the marketing, marketing at its heart is starting a conversation with somebody that could be an ideal customer.
Right.
For our grandparents, they did it by going to the country club,
Yeah.
talking with people at community events at church and stuff like that. So they were doing the same thing we did, just with different tools. And I think sometimes I heard somebody say that our grandparents are more prepared for the future than our kids are, because our grandparents didn't understand the technology, but they understood the strategy. And I think a lot of times now we're just focusing on the tools and not the strategy that makes it run.
That is so true. And if you ever listen to Gary Vaynerchuk, he kind of talks about the same thing. The strategy doesn't change. What medium is going to get you there at this point in time? Like you said, blogging was that thing. And then now there's 41 million blogs out there. Probably 38 million of them are pretty much dead. And now it's podcasting. From now, podcasting might be 10 years from now, it might be, I don't have time to listen to a podcast. I want to watch 10-second videos or 10-second clips or whatever it is. But the strategy of building that know, like, and trust factor. So when you're looking at your customers, you need to tell them a story. You need to provide value before you think they're going to give you money to, to provide that service that you're looking to provide them. So that is so important and so true, Tom. Couldn't agree more.
And really, if you think about it, whenever you hear how somebody else built their business, so as you're listening to me, take this with a grain of salt, right? And how somebody else built their business may not work for you, because it's a different market at a different time. So right now, Paul, I could tell you, yesterday I went to the grocery store, aisle 2. Man, that was flying. You need to always go to aisle 2. Now, I'm not lying to you, and I'm really trying to help you, right? I'm telling you what worked for me, but you're going to a different market at a different time. So just blindly following that may not get you the same results. So the better thing to do is say, well, why did it work for you? What things could you look for? And then test it with that. I'm a big skeptic. So when we've started podcast interview marketing, I'm like, somebody would come and say, will it work for a coach? And I'd say, well, we've had one coach. Let's see how it works. So yeah, now I know it works for coaches. And somebody would say, does it work for authors? Well, I don't know. Let's test it. Well, we've done it for authors. We, worked with some big name publishers and do virtual book tours. So I know that. So we're always testing it. But I always look at that and say, unless I can point to data that it works for in your market for your time, I'll always say, I don't know. Let's test that. But let's take the same principles that we learned and apply those.
There you go. And I think now more than ever, there's actually technology and tools to, when you do test something, you can get proven data. And I'm kind of the same way, finance engineering mind, where if you look 20, 30 years ago, people would just pay tens of thousands of dollars for print ads and radio ads and TV ads, and they don't even know if they're getting any return on it. Now you can get measurable numbers, you can track everything. So it's a beautiful thing. So kind of fast forwarding now into, what is your normal day like? Interview Valet sounds like it's been going for about 2 years, since 2015. What is the normal day in the life of Tom Schwab besides getting on interviews probably daily?
Oh, well, I love talking, as you could tell here. So I love talking to clients, doing sales, doing marketing, doing the podcast interviews. If you ask my wife how many hours a week I worked, she'd probably say 60. If you asked me how many hours of work I work each week, I'd say probably about 15, because to me, there's 15 hours of stuff that I don't want to do unless you paid me to do it. So that's work. The other part is fun. So, my average day is I'm an early riser. So I love getting up early. I'm an East Coast time. So get up at 5 a.m. and really get some of that important deep work done, before the emails start coming in, before the team wakes up, before the clients wake up. Probably from about 5 a.m. to 8 a.m. I really focus on that deep work. Then in the morning, I try to be more available to the team and to customers. And then in the afternoons, I schedule a lot of my my podcast interviews and other events like that. most days I kick off by about 5 or 6 and try to leave business behind me. But I got to tell you, people say, do you have hobbies? And I'm like, "Oh, I love doing this." So, if I went out and golfed right now, it'd be frustrating. So I'm better at business than I am at golf.
That makes two of us. And if you don't play golf pretty much every day, it can get very frustrating. So even when you play every day, it's just as frustrating. So what are some of the things you use on a daily basis to kind of keep you on track, keep your business running, whether it's tools or processes or systems? What do you got in place to make sure everything happens every day that you need to happen?
Sure. First of all, it was last year I read a pivotal book called The 12-Week Year by Brian Moran, and he talks about looking at the year in 12-week segments as opposed to 52 weeks where we've got plenty of time to do everything. And with our business growing as fast as it is, to look out 3 or 5 years is just a wild ass guess. To look out a year is a long way. So we really break it down into quarters and what needs to get done that quarter. So I think that really helps. The other thing is working off a list, and not just a list of, hey, here's the 10 things I need to get done, but here are the most important things I need to get done. Here's the things that I need to delegate. Here's the things I need to automate, things like that. And then I don't know if it's the older I get or the more information I get, but I've just come to the realization that the brain is a awful hard drive. I love being creative, but I don't want to be a creative at 2 a.m. in the morning when all of a sudden in my mind goes, oh, I need to do this tomorrow. So I tend to use a task management system right now. Our company runs on Asana.
Okay.
So I tell everybody, if you want me to do something, put it in Asana. Don't hide it in an email. And if you assign it to me with the task and stuff like that and a date, it will get done.
Awesome. And I totally agree. I think as I'm running a business and another business, and on the day-to-day basis, writing everything down. So when you write everything down, you don't really have to remember anything. It allows your brain to think about other things. And then you have a list and I need to get it done. And I think I have heard nothing but great things about the 12-week year. So we'll definitely link all this stuff up that we're chatting about, because from my understanding, I haven't gone through it yet, but a lot of the business owners that I talk to have, and it sounds like a very powerful mindset shift, planning, thinking, and really kind of starting with the end in mind, like you said, and then working your way backwards to what you need to do on that day to get you where you want to go. So very cool. So I would talk a little bit about balancing and freedom, but it sounds like you love what you do so much. It looks like you're able to do it from home, and your wife's happy about it. But what are some things you do to kind of get away from the day-to-day grind, even if it's not a grind?
Well, and Paul, it's we all can choose what we do, right? There's a line from, I think it's The Godfather or something. This is the life we have chosen. If you're a business owner, you're very talented, right? There's a lot of things you can do. This is what you've chosen to do. And quite a few years ago, a buddy of mine and that I went to high school with, we started talking about what we were going to do when we retire. And at this time, we were both in corporate jobs, counting the days till we retired. And, we both decided that if we ever retired, we'd drive our wives crazy. So our idea for retirement was we're going to do fun things with interesting people and write the profits off as a business expense. That was retirement. Well, Brian died a few years ago, and he never got to see that. But when I turned 50, I looked at that and thought, I'm going to retire now. And so I considered myself retired at 50. I still work just as hard, but all I'm doing now is fun things with interesting people and writing it all off as a business expense. So from that standpoint, I think sometimes just how you look at it, there's sometimes it just plain sucks being a business owner, right? The SOB that you work for doesn't always approve your vacation. And then sometimes they'll cancel your vacation at the to it. One of the things that I love, we built this business to be virtual. And my wife and I have set the goal to work or to be in a different city 1 week out of every month and working from there. And
Very
so that's
cool.
where I'm trying to go with my freedom And, I've done that before at conferences in California and stuff like that. And like I said, my body's on East Coast time. So I don't care. A couple of weeks, I'll be in San Diego. I guarantee you at 2 a.m., I'm
You'll
going to
be
wake up. But that's great because I can work from, 2 a.m. to 8 a.m., get a full day's work in.
Before anyone else has even started.
Exactly. And, if I take a nap in the afternoon, something like that, and we've got all the rest of the day to enjoy that. And you won't see me closing down any establishments, but it gives me a whole lot of freedom.
I totally agree. That's awesome. So it sounds like you got everything planned out and doing awesome things with awesome people. Can't get any better than that. So what are you kind of working on now with Interview Valet? Sounds like you're definitely scaling it up. How many people are working with you, and what are you guys looking to do?
Sure. So right now we've got 8 concierges that work for us, and just putting together a great team. We're starting to really build the infrastructure too. Every time you double your business, you really stress the infrastructure. And
Yep.
so with that, we've been stressing our infrastructure about every quarter. So with that, the systems that we had in place 6 months ago seem archaic. So we're always trying to stay ahead with that. And then we're also trying to really find some strategic partners to work with. We started to work with some of the top publishers, doing virtual book tours for them, which has been great for their leading authors, really just focusing on 3 verticals: business, faith and Christianity, and health, nutrition, and wellness. Not necessarily where our customers are, but where our customers' ideal audiences are. So
Okay.
really just trying to stay in that focused in that niche, and always providing better service, better efficiency, and we always want to be known as the best.
Very cool. And I can attest to that. I think ran an interview valet at the infancy of your business as a podcast host with my old show, Automate Your Franchise. And at that time, I think you only had a couple concierge. But the great thing about it, if you do have a podcast or you're looking to start a podcast, it is free for you to use them. They will bring guests to you. So if you're ever looking for guests, most podcast hosts are, especially when you're getting started. It's a great way to get good qualified guests on your show that have been trained in background, and they got the whole 9 yards set up for them. So well done there. So as you kind of look into the future even a little bit further, I know you said 5 years from now, who knows what's going to happen, but what is kind of the bigger picture of Interview Valet? Where's it going to go?
To me, I really look at this as that, our mission is to introduce inspiring thought leaders, to introduce those to millions of people that could be their ideal customers for the betterment of both people, for the betterment of all. So that's what I'm most excited about, is that there's a lot of people right now, and I'm sure there's people listening to this right now, that have a great product or service. There's a lot of people, hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of people that you could help if they knew about you. And you don't have to change your website. You don't have to tweak this or tweak that. Your problem is that you're obscure. You need to figure out a way so that people even know about you. And that's what I'm most excited about is, all of our clients that get to work with, they're amazing, and they've got so many things that they can help people with. And I'm just always tickled when I hear back from our clients that, hey, I got a few new customers from this podcast and they're working out great. And really it's that our clients are finding their ideal customers. And at the end of the day, I think that's what I'm going to look back on and be most proud of the small businesses, the authors, the speakers, the new brands that we've helped, the franchises that are trying to connect with the franchisees, all of these things, and the difference that's made in people's lives. So that's what gets me up in the morning every day, and what gets me excited.
Very cool. Yeah, I mean, it's really all about serving your customer and getting them the results they want. That's really the gratifying piece of owning a business. So kind of talking a little bit further on that, how do you see podcasting? How can local business owners leverage podcasting that are looking to get in front of their local market? So for instance, somebody in Kalamazoo that's, looking to get in front of people in the Kalamazoo area. How do you think podcasting is going to help them?
I would use the same argument that people would ask with this question with blogging. It's like, well, why should I write a blog? Because it'll go out to everybody and I can only serve customers in my local area. Well, it doesn't cost you anymore to market to everyone. So it's like if you went to the television station and say, I want to buy some ads. And they're like, well, we can do the ads for this price, but they won't just be in the local area. They've got to go national. They've got to go worldwide. Would you look at them and say, and it's just for the same price, would you look at them and say, no, I don't want to do that? So I think really for local businesses, if you're the first person out there, you get to be the thought leader on that. And there's a great man by the name of Marcus Sheridan. He runs a podcast called The Sales Lion. And if you haven't heard of Marcus, he wrote a great book called They Ask You Answer. And he had a business in, I think it was like right around 2008. It was a pool business in the Washington, D.C. area, river pools and spas. And they started to build their business based on content, right, on blogs. And you can't, if he got a lead from California, he wasn't going from D.C. to California to build the pool. But you know what, Paul, he was able to grow his business in the Washington, D.C. area and get so well known that he ended up buying a pool company that makes the pools. And now he sells the pools to other distributors. And guess what? He'll also give them the leads if they buy his pools.
There you go.
So from that standpoint, I think you need to look bigger. And the other thing is, like I said before with podcasts, is if you're on a podcast, so many of them now are getting picked up by local radio. So for an example, great podcast, Business Leadership Series by Derek Champagne. Derek's been doing a podcast for a while, and it just got picked up by ESPN Radio on Sunday afternoon.
Wow.
And you think, well, that's pretty neat, right? But he is also based out of, is it Bentonville, Arkansas, which is where Walmart is?
Walmart, yeah.
So you think of how many customers there are trying to pitch Walmart that have flown in on a Sunday afternoon and have a Monday morning meeting. And when they listen to ESPN radio, they're going to hear Derek's podcast. I mean, that's great. There was another podcast, I think it's called Great Lake Stories, where this guy just started to do a podcast based on, Great Lakes and different stories around there. And people would say, well, how are you ever going to use that? Well, it got picked up by so many little local radio stations all around the Great Lakes that repurposed it. They wanted that free content. This guy is now selling advertisements on that.
Wow.
There's another realtor I know that's down in Nashville, and he's just got a podcast now where he introduces people to Nashville. And it's people that are looking to move to Nashville, all the neat things in there. And he helps them. And guess what? Before they even move to Nashville, they're learning about it. They're listening to it. And he's the guy that's sponsoring it. They know him. And with that, Andrew is realtor now for all these people that are moving to Nashville. And if you haven't been to Nashville lately or haven't seen the traffic, there are a whole lot of people moving to Nashville.
There are. I was actually just there recently. Nashville is a fun town, and there's droves of people moving there. But that's such great insight, because I think a lot of local business owners just get kind of stuck in their little bubble, and they don't think any bigger. And some of the examples you gave are just, that's monumental things you would never even think of 10, 15 years ago. How could I be a pool guy in Washington, D.C. and affect the whole country? And obviously it's possible through podcasting, getting your word out, showing you're an expert, building that valuable content so people know, like, and trust you. So just because you're running a local business doesn't mean that it is local anymore. So thank you so much for providing all that insight. So Tom, this has been awesome, but as you know, all good things do come to an end. After all, we are all about freedom on the show. So we don't want to take up too much more of your time. I'm sure you got plenty more shows to hop on today, and not too much more of our listeners' time. But before we sign off, it is time for our rapid recommendations for all things related to systems, automation, and freedom. So I'm going to give you 6 topics. You're going to give me an answer of each topic of one thing that you recommend our listeners check out today. So
Perfect.
One book.
Thou Shalt Prosper by Rabbi Daniel Lapin.
There you go. Quote.
What's ordinary to you is amazing to others.
Beautiful. One tool.
Asana.
A podcast.
Oh, of course, the Business Owner Freedom Formula. And I would say, since you're already listening to it, you need to leave a rating and review.
Wow, look at that. Tom, you're a good man. What about one, if you are in the social media world, is there any communities that you hang out in, paid or free?
Wherever your customers are.
Beautiful. Couldn't have said it better myself. And then one parting piece of advice for any business owner out there who is stuck, burned out, or just trying to get over the hump.
Sure. Connect with other people. You've got something you could do that would help them, but they don't know about you. So if you're listening to a podcast, I know this is more than one word. If you're listening to a podcast, you know the power of the connection here. So use that either as a podcast guest or a podcast host. But what's ordinary to you is amazing to other people. It's so easy to share it. Do it before your competitors do.
Awesome. Tom Schwab, fellow Michigander, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to impart some of your knowledge, wisdom, and enthusiasm to our community. Hopefully this helps everyone out there get one step closer to achieving ultimate freedom in their business and in life. But before we sign off, where can our listeners go to keep in touch with you?
Sure. Thank you so much, Paul. And if you just go back to interviewvalet.com, I know you're probably multitasking right now. So just go back there and interviewvalet.com, and I'll make a special page with everything that we talked about here. And it'll be interviewvalet.com/BOFF for business owners freedom formula, and have is a 30-minute training that talks about how can you use podcast interview marketing. There's 9 secrets to get on your first podcast, and there's even the checklist that I use before every one of my interviews. They say that it's good to learn from your mistakes. I disagree with that. It's good to learn from somebody else's mistakes.
Even better.
In 500 interviews, these are all the mistakes I've made and will never make again.
Wow. So definitely head over there. We'll link it up in the show notes if you are driving or walking the dog and don't have time. Interviewvalet.com/BOFF. If you want to hang out with Tom on Twitter, TM Schwab or Interview Valet. And if you want to go to Facebook, facebook.com/Interview Valet. Other than that, stay tuned for next week's episode as we dive into another fantastic interview with Leslie Hassler from Your Biz Rules. And if you like what you're hearing, we'd always appreciate, as Tom said, a friendly review, subscribe, and share with your friends. So until next time, don't forget to join our free Facebook group, bizfreedomformula.com, where we can continue the conversation with like-minded entrepreneurs who are putting the plans in place to work less, make more, while increasing the value of their business and achieving ultimate freedom. Keep rocking, trust the process. Talk to you soon.